Stop scrolling for 1 second and listen to this. There's a strange truth unfolding on the very device you're holding. We live in an era where every single moment is coded into content. From morning coffee to major achievements, even tears are dressed up with filters. Yet, there is a large group of people who are ghosts on social media. They watch everything, they scroll deeply, but you never see them. Maybe you are one of them. And here is the most terrifying question. If you didn't post it, do you even exist? Why would someone deliberately reject visibility and choose to be a digital phantom? Don't assume it's shyness, because that silence is a weapon. It is the most sophisticated psychological rebellion against a culture obsessed with being seen. Today, we are going to decode their secret. Chapter 1. Silence is power and control. Let me tell you something that the tech giants don't want you to realize. Silence is not emptiness. Silence is absolute control. Think about it. Every time you post something online, you're handing over a piece of yourself to the algorithm, to the crowd, to the invisible judges who will decide whether your moment was worthy. You're asking for permission to feel good about your own life. You're outsourcing your sense of self-worth to strangers who are scrolling mindlessly while sitting on the toilet. But the people who don't post, they've opted out of that entire game. Taking back autonomy. These digital ghosts have reclaimed something incredibly precious, the right to define themselves. They decide what the world gets to know. They're not performing for an audience. They're not curating a highlight reel. They're living without the constant pressure to translate every experience into content. This is radical autonomy in an age of voluntary surveillance. While everyone else is frantically documenting their existence for validation, these people are quietly asking themselves, who am I when nobody's watching? And that question, that single question, is more powerful than 1,000 perfectly filtered photos. The observer's advantage. Here's what most people don't understand. The silent ones aren't missing out. They're actually operating from a position of strategic advantage. They see everything. They absorb pattern. They understand the social dynamics without being caught up in them. While you're busy crafting the perfect caption, they're noticing what you're actually trying to say. While you're editing your third selfie, they're reading the anxiety behind your eyes. They analyze before they judge. They think before they react. This is the clarity that comes from distance. Psychologists call it metacognition, the ability to observe your own thoughts and the thoughts of others from a higher vantage point. It's like playing chess while everyone else is playing checkers. The psychological foundation. Research in personality psychology reveals something fascinating. People who maintain low social media presence score significantly higher on measures of self-restraint, self-reflection, and emotional independence. These aren't antisocial hermits. These are people who have developed a strong internal compass. They're not trying to prove who they are. They're trying to understand who they are. And there's a massive difference between those two pursuits. One is performance. The other is wisdom. The silent ones have realized that the loudest voice in your life should be your own, not the collective roar of notifications, not the algorithmic whisper telling you what you should want, not the carefully constructed personas of people you went to high school with. They've chosen internal validation over external validation. And in a world where everyone is shouting into the void hoping for an echo, that choice is revolutionary. Chapter 2. The hunger for authenticity. Now let's talk about why people stop posting in the first place. Because for many of these digital ghosts, silence wasn't the starting point. It was a destination they arrived at after emotional burnout. The exhaustion of performance. There's a moment that happens to almost everyone who's deeply engaged with social media. It's subtle at first, then it hits you like a wave. You're at dinner with friends, and halfway through your meal, you realize you've been thinking more about how to photograph it than how to enjoy it. You're on vacation, but you're experiencing the sunset through your camera screen, mentally composing the caption that will make people jealous. You're living in third person, and one day, you wake up exhausted, not physically tired, emotionally drained from the constant performance, from the pressure to always be on, from the relentless need to top your last post, to maintain the narrative, to prove that your life is still interesting, still worthy, still enough. This is what psychologists call emotional labor, the work of managing your feelings and presentation to meet external expectations. and social media has turned it into a full-time job that you're not even getting paid for. The decision to stop posting often comes from this profound realization. I'm performing my life instead of living it, protecting the sacred. Here's a truth that's hard to articulate but deeply felt. When you share everything, nothing is sacred anymore. The people who choose silence are protecting something precious, the sanctity of lived experience. They understand that some moments lose their magic when you try to capture and broadcast them. The intimacy of a conversation with a loved one, the private triumph of overcoming a personal struggle, the quiet beauty of an ordinary Tuesday that somehow feels perfect. These experiences have depth, complexity, imperfection, and truth. But social media demands the opposite: shallow, simple, polished, and performative. So the silent ones have made a choice. They value what cannot be posted more than what can. They're protecting the full spectrum of human experience, the messy, the mundane, the mysterious, from being flattened into content. Think about the last truly meaningful moment in your life. Maybe it was a breakthrough in therapy. Maybe it was crying with your best friend at 2 in the morning. Maybe it was the way the light hit your grandmother's face when she was telling you a story from her childhood. Could you have posted that? Should you have? The silent ones would say no. Some things are too real, too raw, too beautiful to be shared with people who will swipe past them in half a second. Psychological ownership. There's a concept in psychology called psychological ownership, the feeling that something is mine. It's not about legal possession. It's about emotional connection and control. And here's the paradox of social media. The moment you post something, you lose some of that ownership. You open it up to interpretation, judgment, and appropriation. That beautiful moment you had, it's now a piece of data in someone else's algorithm. That vulnerable feeling you shared, it's now entertainment for people who don't know you. The silent ones understand this intuitively. They keep their moments intact, private, pure. They maintain full psychological ownership of their experiences because they haven't diluted them by seeking external validation. When you don't post about your promotion, it stays yours. When you don't share photos of your relationship, it remains intimate. When you keep your struggles private, they maintain their dignity. This isn't about secrecy or shame, it's about sovereignty. It's about maintaining the right to have experiences that exist only for you, that don't need to be witnessed to matter, that don't need to be validated to be valuable. Chapter 3. Breaking free from the dopamine loop. Let's get neuroscientific for a moment, because understanding the dopamine loop is crucial to understanding why silence is such a radical act. The conditioning mechanism: every time you post something and get likes, comments, or shares, your brain releases dopamine, the same neurotransmitter involved in gambling, drugs, and other addictive behaviors. This isn't an accident. Social media platforms are designed by some of the smartest behavioral psychologists and engineers in the world, and their entire business model depends on keeping you engaged. The system works like this: you post something, you check back compulsively, you get a notification, dopamine hit, you feel good, your brain learns, posting equals reward, so you post more, you check more, you need more. Over time, this conditioning becomes so powerful that your brain starts equating external validation with self-worth. The number of likes doesn't just feel good, it feels like proof that you matter, that you're worthy, that you exist. This is why if you didn't post it, "Did it even happen?" isn't just a joke. For many people, it's a genuine psychological crisis. Internal locus of control. The people who choose silence have developed something psychologists call an internal locus of control. This means they believe that their worth, their happiness, and their outcomes come from within themselves, not from external circumstances or other people's opinions. This is incredibly rare in our current culture. We've been conditioned from childhood to seek external validation: grades, trophies, promotions, likes. We've been taught that our value is determined by other people's assessment of us. But people with an internal locus of control have rejected this framework entirely. They don't need digital applause to confirm their value. They don't need strangers to witness their life to feel like it matters. Their happiness comes from internal alignment, not external validation. Refusing to participate in the dopamine loop isn't easy. It's an act of discipline and self-awareness that most people can't maintain, because when you stop posting, You have to confront something uncomfortable. Who am I when nobody's watching? What do I actually want versus what do I want people to think I want? These are hard questions. They require honesty. They require sitting with uncertainty and discomfort. They require building a sense of self that isn't dependent on other people's reactions. But the payoff is freedom. Real, psychological freedom from the tyranny of other people's opinions. The scientific benefits, and this isn't just philosophical, there's hard data backing this up. Multiple studies on social media breaks have shown remarkable benefits. Decreased anxiety and depression, increased emotional stability, improved sleep, better focus, more life satisfaction, and stronger real-world relationships. One study from the University of Pennsylvania found that limiting social media use to 30 minutes per day led to significant reductions in loneliness and depression. Another study showed that people who took a week-long break from Facebook reported higher life satisfaction and more positive emotions. The silent ones have discovered this truth experientially. Life gets better when you stop performing it. When you're not constantly comparing your behind the scenes to everyone else's highlight reel, you can actually appreciate what you have. When you're not seeking validation from strangers, you can build genuine self-esteem. When you're not addicted to notifications, you can be present in your actual life. This is the discipline of digital silence, choosing long-term psychological health over short-term dopamine hits. Chapter 4: The real meaning of connection. So what happens when you choose silence? What fills the void left by the constant noise of social media? The answer might surprise you. Redefining connection. When you stop posting, something interesting happens. You discover who actually cares about you without the reminder. Think about it. On social media, people engage with you because your content appears in their feed. They're reminded of your existence by an algorithm. They like your post as a form of social grooming, not necessarily because they're invested in your well-being. But when you disappear, when you stop providing regular updates, the people who truly care will reach out. They'll text you, they'll call, they'll ask, "Hey, I haven't heard from you in a while. How are you really doing?" This is the difference between broadcast relationships and intimate relationships. Broadcast relationships are shallow and numerous. Intimate relationships are deep and few. Social media encourages the former. Silence reveals the latter. The silent ones have learned to build relationships that don't require evidence. Their friendships aren't performed for an audience. Their love doesn't need documentation. Their connections are based on actual presence, not digital performance. And here's the beautiful irony. By being less visible online, they become more connected in real life. Intimacy with the self. But perhaps the most profound discovery is this: silence is intimacy with yourself. When you're constantly broadcasting your life, you're in a perpetual state of external focus. Your attention is directed outward to your audience, to their reactions, to how you're being perceived. There's very little energy left for internal reflection. But when you embrace silence, you create space for introspection. You start hearing your own voice again. You reconnect with your own desires, values, and compass. You remember what you actually think versus what you think you're supposed to think. This is not loneliness. Loneliness is the pain of feeling disconnected from others. What I'm describing is solitude, the richness of connecting deeply with yourself. The philosopher Blaise Pascal wrote, "All of humanity's problems stem from man's inability to sit quietly in a room alone." The silent ones have learned this skill. They can be alone with their thoughts without needing distraction. They can experience boredom without immediately reaching for their phone. They can sit with uncertainty without seeking external reassurance. This intimacy with the self is the foundation of psychological health. It's how you develop genuine self-knowledge. It's how you distinguish between your authentic desires and socially conditioned wants. It's how you build a life that actually fits you instead of a life that looks good to others. The resonance of presence. Here's what I've noticed about people who live quietly in the digital sense. They're often the most present people in physical spaces. While everyone else is half present, one eye on the conversation, one eye on their phone, these people are fully there. They notice the details others miss. They listen without planning their response. They engage without performing their engagement. They absorb the texture of life, the way rain sounds on different surfaces. The exact shade of green when spring first arrives, the subtle changes in a friend's voice that signal something's wrong. They're attuned to the analog world in a way that's increasingly rare. This is what living fully and quietly looks like. Not withdrawn or antisocial, but deeply engaged with what's actually in front of them. They're not documenting the moment, they're in the moment. And there's something magnetic about this quality. People feel it when they're around someone who's truly present. It's like a cool drink of water in a desert of distraction. So let's bring this full circle. We started with a question. If you didn't post it, do you even exist? And now I'll give you the answer. You exist more fully when you don't post it. Because the things that shape you most deeply, the quiet moments of clarity, the painful lessons learned in private, the ordinary joys that don't photograph well, the messy process of becoming who you're meant to be, these rarely make it to the feed. Your grandmother's hands, the book that changed your mind, the apology you received, the fear you overcame, the morning you woke up and finally felt at peace, the conversation that lasted until dawn, the moment you realized you'd been wrong about something important. These experiences are too nuanced, too personal, too sacred to be reduced to content. So the next time you see someone who doesn't post, don't assume they're hiding. Don't assume they're shy, or boring, or disconnected. They're living. They're choosing depth over breadth, quality over quantity, meaning over metrics. They're protecting their attention, their energy, and their autonomy. They're building a life that doesn't require an audience to be valid. They've realized something that the rest of us are slowly learning. We were not made to be performances. We were made to be human. And being human, truly human, requires silence. It requires privacy. It requires moments that exist only for you, witnessed by no one, validated by nothing except your own experience of being alive. So maybe it's time to ask yourself, what would change if you stopped performing your life and started living it? What would you discover in the silence? Who would you become if nobody was watching? These are the questions the digital ghosts have already answered, and their silence speaks louder than any post ever could.